There is a lack of interpersonal connection from technology that has lost itself in the workplace. Technology raises new legal and ethical problems as well, that we don't really have any customs or precedents to guide us. Example, in the past you could not download music or movies, but now you can download it from anywhere on the internet. Does this raise some sort of ethical question? Is that stealing in some ways? We will look at that and examine how text integration in our public and private life is affecting us and how its advancements will enhance the future of business.
Hello, today we'll be lecturing on When Innovation Bites Back from our chapter on Honest Works. First, we'll be talking about information ethics in a worldwide context and what are our ethical obligations in terms of information.
Second part is, can robots be teammates? How can they complement human activities?
Thirdly, we'll be talking about the new civil rights battle over our minds, new advertising mediums, and how the world is adapted to it.
Section 4 will be talking about technological dystopias and how the future is going to turn out, and how technology must serve us and we not serve the technology.
So looking at information as a major commodity in a global economy, we get to look at the rise of technology as a whole, from the creation of the first computer to the innovation of the internet. We have been able to connect cultures and connect countries and pretty much render borders imaginary because our phones allow us to connect to someone across the world. With that access and with that privilege, we are starting to see a change in the global economy and how we as humans are allowed to spread information at higher rates. With that idea in mind, let's look at this quote. The entire continent of Africa contains fewer telephone lines than that does of Manhattan. This is important to look at because it emphasizes the imbalances between underdeveloped and developed countries. When looking at that, we understand that information has become power, and power allows for international dominance to happen. In countries like the United States, we have access to information at higher rates than most countries in the world. This allows for us to create a world of sameness, allowing cultural suppression to happen. Not information. When looking at Africa and South Africa specifically, we see that they export jewels, fuel, cars, fruits, nuts, different commodities at higher rates in a lot of countries in the world. One thing that they don't import is technology and infrastructure. This is due to corrupt governments, a lack of structure in between countries and between different tribes. So it makes it a little bit harder to create a cohesive net between its citizens. This is very important understanding. Information is power and how it leads to international dominance. With our Western ideals of democracy, of individualism, and exceptionalism, we're able to craft a world of sameness through our ability to disseminate information and give out information at higher rates in other countries. What this creates is a world of cultural suppression, where we want to craft a world that is more similar to how we operate than how they individually operate as a sovereign nation. With all of that in mind, it comes down to this idea of money equaling knowledge equaling power. 60 years ago, any of us could walk down the street and put 25 cents into a stand on the sidewalk. From there, we would get access to a newspaper that would give us local news, global news, and national news. That is very important to understand how today we have all of that but on our cell phones. And the interesting thing as information as a commodity, with the rise of the internet and the rise of technological advancements, subscriptions have become a big way in people gain their access to information. So whether it be New York Times, Bloomberg, Washington Post, you have to pay $5.99, $10.99 a month in order to receive the articles that you need. That is the privilege that we have as Americans who are immersed in Western culture. But the access to those types of information, the outlets that we have, it is not the same for underdeveloped countries. What this chapter, what this section talks about is the ethical issues and how we disseminate information and how information has been kept from people in certain places due to government regulations, government dominance, or not having the infrastructure like Africa to maintain the ability to gain new access and access to information, the ability to give out information whenever they like.
So in our second section, the big question that is posed is, can robots be teammates? And that is just identifying the best model for human-robot interaction. So, as we know, between humans to humans, communication and coordination is key. But this proves difficult between robots and humans. Human teams that are effective usually seek out robots to be that final piece of the puzzle in order to complete maybe a small task or a big task like fixing a space station for NASA. In these situations, robot to human interactions is very key and will, of course, advance our interaction with technology in the future. But first, we must identify the successful traits of human to human interactions and implement that into a robot-human interaction. So, successful traits are sharing of a common goal, trust, and a fulfillment of expectations. Humans that share a common goal usually have the same knowledge or the same emotional tendencies to finish a common goal. The second trait, which is trust, is built very emotionally, something that robots can't do. Because they can't trust or they can't feel any guilt, their only interest is completing the task. Trusting each other is important, and it gives that feeling of confidence between each teammate. Believing teammates that will sacrifice their personal interests for the betterment of the group will increase trust. And the third one is the fulfillment of expectations. If somebody in the workplace gives you a job, they expect you to ultimately finish that job with quality and in a timely manner. But the biggest problems for robots and humans is the trust and the sharing of that goal, and then also fulfilling the expectations that the human wants the robot to fulfill. In order for the robots to successfully integrate into a human team, they must establish this trust and self-awareness of themselves in order to come into that team and help out as much as they possibly can. If robots are introduced in a low-risk situation, this can help with trust and kind of build towards higher risk situations that will help the team in the future.
So for our third section in our chapter in Honest Works, I'll be talking about the next civil rights battle being over our minds. We think of our mind as our most private space and as the place where we compile all of our thoughts, our ideologies, and our various idiosyncrasies about our personality. With that in mind, let's look at this quote by bioethicist Paul Root Wolpe. If the skull is not an absolute domain of privacy, there are no privacy domains left. And as a precursor to our chapter, this quote leads in with the idea of how are we going to end up fighting for the safety, the security, and freedom of our own brains with the rise of technology and innovations in that field. So the major things that is talked about in this section is fMRI brain scans and their development. These brain scans detect racial sentiments. It tracks thought patterns while doing arithmetic, doing homework, playing video games. And in conjunction with that, we have the rise of no-lie MRIs. This is a true verification test that is being administered by entrepreneurs in their respective fields, and they've been pushing this initiative for the last 5 years. So with all of that in mind, we look at the new enhancements of drug enhancements in the medical field. So look at a drug like propanol, and it's known for being able to erase traumatic memories and essentially blur the mind. With alongside that, there are other drug enhancements that stimulate feelings of euphoria. So with all of this information in mind, let's put it into two contexts: the workplace, the courtroom. So let's look at the workplace. Look at these two brain scans, no-lie MRIs and fMRI brain scans. If your boss already makes you pee in a cup, are you okay with them subjecting you to MRI scans during your interview? That will detect the thoughts that you're having in that moment and the validity of the answers that you give to the questions that are asked during your interview. Now, with all three of these, and we bring that into the world of of law and in the courtroom, it will change the complete landscape of how justice is served in this country. With the no-lie MRIs and the brain scans, now people that are called to stand, the truth will actually be told because it is scanned and it is tracked and it is now public access. Now, the gray area within this and where, when we look at it from an ethical situation, let's say I'm the victim of domestic abuse and violence. I'm then called to stand to give my testimony. And in recent memory, in recent times, we can test the validity of truth through forensic evidence and in a certain extent to emit emotion in the courtroom, tears. Now, with the drug enhancements that have happened, plus the MRI scans, I am forced to relive that moment on a visual scale. That's not only being shown to me, but shown to the jury, the audience, the judge, everyone in the courtroom. So now, what types of gaps are there going to be created within the world of law? And how are we going to ethically get around those problems in terms of having jury members take drugs that increase the empathy gap that makes them more empathetic to one side over the other in court cases? And to wrap up the chapter, we saw this quote: to a certain extent, memories are public property. We're subjected to being subpoenaed to court to give recounts, to give testimonies, to bring out the truth. So with all the things that have happened in terms of technological innovation, how are we, as a rising generation that has control and access to all the different mediums of technology and information spreading, how are we going to either A, allow technology to infiltrate our brains, or B, fight against that? Because that is the future that is before us. Our brains can and will be a piece of technological innovation.
So for our final section, we discuss why the future doesn't need us. And what does this exactly mean? Well, the future doesn't need us because technology will eventually displace human species. This seems outlandish and kind of a science fiction dream to you, but in reality, the technologies that we are producing today could definitely hold this capacity to displace us in the future. A strong quote that we took from this section is that anything that can go wrong will. What does that mean exactly? Well, the things that are wrong with the technologies today, the dangerous technologies such as AI, nanotechnology, even nuclear technology, there are things that can go wrong with those in a blink of an eye. So within the next 50 or 100 years, we have to really limit and prevent those dangerous technologies. Some big questions about the technological utopia versus dystopia is, what if a technological dystopia happens? What would we do? Or how will we tackle the problem today to prevent that from happening? How will it happen? Like I've said before, maybe nuclear technology, nanotechnology, AI, or a superior robot that we create within the next 20 to 30 years. When will it happen? The time period within the next 20 to 50 years, going all the way up to 100 years, could drastically change technology. So we have to really carve out a time period when this may happen. And why will it happen? Why will it happen? Basically because scientists today and the people that are creating these technologies are just creating them without any mind and sense of what could happen in the future with those technologies and what dangerous capacities that they have. So, in essence, should we limit knowledge? Should we limit the technologies that we are creating today? We believe, and we have a common belief as people, as students, that knowledge is plentiful, that we seek knowledge all the time, and that there's no certain cap on knowledge. But maybe there is in terms of technology. If we want technology to serve us in the future rather than we serve them, then maybe we have to limit the technology and the knowledge in order to ethically save us in the future. And this is a huge ethical dilemma because there are scientists out there that believe that getting more knowledge on technology and creating more technology that could be potentially dangerous is a good thing for us. But many others believe that that technology could definitely spiral into a crazy dystopia in the near future. So the big question is,